Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dave, on the Author Revolution podcast. I briefly introduced you, like I said, in the beginning of this whole podcast episode. But for my audience, can you go ahead and, in your own words, tell them who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm a dad of little Jedi, and those little Jedi keep me on my feet constantly. I've got one big little Jedi that is at Lehigh University, who plays softball there, and I'm actually going to go visit her this weekend, and then pivot back to like third grade problems just like that. So that's always been fun. I came from a military background. I actually joined every one of the males in my entire family, like 5-6 generations back, were all in the military, most of which were in the Navy. My uncle, he went Air Force, so he's the black sheep of the family. We have a couple of coasties, but we just call them Navy. Some of the coasties listen to this will be like, oh, that Dave. But then I joined the military myself. While I was in the military, that's when I decided to really start working and honing my craft on writing. The thing is that I'm just, back then I was not, and I still wouldn't even say I'm an Ernest Hemingway or a great writer. I liked writing. I passed classes in high school, barely. But it doesn't mean that you don't have a passion for something. And so for me, I needed to understand the market. I needed to understand what was going on before someone like me could really craft something that benefits people. I can't just sit down and write anything I wanted. I would have to kind of understand what it is people wanted so that I could do that. And so when doing that, I got to learn a lot about Amazon and other markets. I worked with publishing companies, multiple New York Times bestselling authors. And, from there, it's just really ballooned out. It's been really fun. And now I'm out of the military. I'm full-time at home with my little Jedi and the big Jedi, who's all the way in Pennsylvania.
Just doing my little ways away. Nice. Yeah. Now, before we started this, you were talking about that you own 7 different companies, though, right? Or that you're operating them. So it's a busy life for you. What can you explain which companies those are and how they impact authors?
Some of them are specific in the book world. That's like Kindlepreneur is one of them. Publisher Rocket is a book marketing software that's global. Legitimately global. Matter of fact, MarketWatch just listed us as one of the top 10 book marketing companies in the world, and which was pretty jazzed. I was like, oh wow,
heck yeah,
look at that little guy. What's funny was reading their entire report on our company. I was like, huh, is that so? Okay. So there's that, and then we're coming out with Atticus, which is a book writing software, book writing and formatting software, and then the other ones range from FFLs, weapons, and there's also one in applicant tracking systems, which is called an ATS. So, kind of like Workable Greenhouse, it's called Rooster. I also own a software development company. And, all those things kind of play into one. So,
yeah, you're like all over the place where it's very diversified. That's really awesome. So how did the book sphere kind of come into your, if you're in the military, you're doing your thing over there. What was your journey with writing? Were you planning on writing a novel, nonfiction, something? How did that actually start?
Honestly, necessity. And I think that was a really big thing. When I was in the military, I ultimately ended up becoming a military diplomat. And so I was always sent to foreign countries and I was working within those countries. The problem though is that there wasn't enough like US support. So most of the time my family couldn't come with me. So I was always going away for years without my kids and wife. And so, Tiff, my wife, at one point kind of sat me down. I was like, Dave, like, I'm cool to support this, but can you tell me what the reason is? Like, what are you really trying to work for? And I wasn't trying to be an admiral or anything like that. I was just doing it. And I was like, that's a really good point. So we started to look at how I could get a job or something that would bring me home. I could get out of the military and I could be home with the family. And with my background and skill set, I was just going to jump in another 9-to-5 traveling job. Like it was just the only way. So I started looking at how I could build something while in Korea that would allow me to get out. And it just turned into books and writing and, learning about online marketing and learning about organizations. So I did that on the side. As a matter of fact, I wrote my first book while out to sea on a South Korean warship.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I could say this, if this dyslexic guy can write a book on a South Korean warship, I can honestly say anybody can really do this.
Right. And how many people can say that their book origin story came from there? I mean, honestly, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was in between shifts. I was literally had my laptop, you know, and I'd whip it out as soon as I could and start writing whenever I could, and, you know, go run off and do something on the ship and then come back and finish up a paragraph. Like, so that was my lifestyle for a bit.
Right. I can completely relate to that. Although for my more basic, where I was a stay-at-home mom in the very beginning, so it was like nonstop interruptions, but you know, not life or death necessarily. Okay, so
it could be you give your child the wrong colored cup and it is life or death.
Or the wrong juice. I'm just saying, man. It's got to be mango juice in my house. I don't know why, but that's what it is. That's right.
It's gotta be Dora the Explorer on that cup, or else you're going to be exploring a new cup.
It's going to be on the floor, and there's going to be a fit. Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so you mentioned Kindlepreneur, and you've mentioned Publisher Rocket, and I'm just curious how, like, I think I know how this kind of played out, but I think my listeners would like to know which came first, Kindlepreneur or KDP Rocket, as it was back in the day.
Yeah, Kindlepreneur came first. So I'd been writing the books and I'd really been digging into Amazon. I almost created like basically my own Google Sheets that helped me to calculate, understand the market. And so I was doing that. And so I wrote a whole bunch of articles on Kindlepreneur, just trying to teach people how to do this, understand the market trends, trend analysis, figuring out where there is a market and where there isn't. At the time, there was a software called Kindle Samurai. And Kindle Samurai only worked on PC. It didn't work on Mac. The programmer was not a author. It was actually some great person. He's Israeli, didn't speak English very well, didn't offer support. But it was the best software for kind of helping to get some of the important information. It was a lot of things were broken too. A lot of features just didn't work because that just wasn't his thing. Well, I was selling a lot of those and I was constantly having to find ways to kind of fix it and say, well, hey, here's what you got to do. Take this number and do this. And it was just painful. You know, it was painful for people because nobody wants to have to do the extra work. So then I was like, well, jeepers, you know, if I'm selling this much of the software and I'm constantly having to work to fix the problem of the software, and it's not even my software, boy, wouldn't it be nice if I could create something that did this, but then did all these other, like not only fix the problem, but did all these other things that I wish it would do. And oh, by the way, it works on PC and Mac. And so that's what really got me into looking for programmers, because I don't know anything about programming. I've got my formulas and sheets. And at the time I was actually in Sri Lanka doing my military. It was my last military engagement there. And I was able to really get to know some great people. One of my business partners and probably my best friend is Bonica. And so him and I worked together and we started getting some programmers and we built KDP Rocket at the time. And it was only a couple of the features that it has now, but over the years, we've just added to it and constantly worked to improve it, make it, you know, just better and better. And the cool thing is that the people who joined us from the beginning, I've always had it that my software, if I improve it, you should get that improvement. Like, you don't have to pay me for the improvement. So all of the upgrades, updates have always been absolutely free. And so that drove me into learning more about programming. I was able to build free tools for Kindlepreneur, like the book description generator or the Kindle calculator. And it's just, you know, helped me to really like look at the new project Atticus and a whole bunch of other things. So that
absolutely
was kind of the start. And it was just kind of like spiderwebbed right out from there.
It really did. It's kind of like the way your website works too. It's amazing. It's your website is one of those websites that I can go in there looking for one specific thing. And then 4 hours, it's like TikTok for book writers. It's like 4 hours later, you've gone through like every other like video and tutorial known to man. And all of a sudden you're like, what the heck did he just do to me? I love it. It's a great website. So if anyone needs to really get locked into it for a while, definitely go check out kindlepreneur.com because it's amazing. Holy cow. Okay, so like I said, I've been using Publisher Rocket since its early days when it was KDP Rocket. So you talked a little bit about the inspiration for the app and how it kind of got started. So I'm assuming that it was obviously for your own use. And then, like you said, the gentleman that kind of had a weird thing going on with it and it didn't quite work out. but now you've pivoted into this new thing called Atticus. And so that's what I wanted to talk about for the remainder of the podcast episode. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit more about what Atticus is? I know you mentioned it very briefly in the beginning, but I think this has the potential to be very dangerous for some of these extra curricular applications that are out there, because it kind of does a lot of the same thing. Go for it. What does it do?
Yeah, well, I guess the best way to say what it does is how we got there. I used to, let's see, back when I worked at Apple, I got to play with a new software called Scrivener back in the day. And I actually wrote my master's thesis on it. And I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I say this because 13 years later, and I still don't know how to use all the features. And I mean, I've used it for everything. And it's just, I've even paid a couple $100 on courses on how to use Scrivener. Like Scrivener's $50, but I paid $200 for one course and $100 on a course on just how to format with Scrivener. Like I've always said, like, I like it. It's cool. But man, there's a lot of, I don't know, jankiness to it. The fact that the Macs have a 3.0 and then the PCs had a 2.0 version. And for 5 years until they finally created the 3.0 version, so that's a bummer. And then I've jumped as a writer. This is how I do it. I write my book on Scrivener. Then I export the thing into a Word doc, which I then upload to Google Docs so that I can work one-on-one with my editor. And by the way, there are some editors that are like, I only work with Word. And I'm like, then you don't work with me, because we're working on Google Docs. Because what I want to do is I want to see real time what they're doing. And I want to be able to leave comments. What I hate most is that when I have to email back and forth different copies of my book, and all of a sudden I end up, by the time I'm done with the editor, I've got like 27 different versions of my book, Word documents. And I don't remember which one, because they all have the word final on it. And that drives me nuts. Especially, and I have actually published or formatted and published the wrong book before. And that was soul crushing, because then when I published it, I realized it was missing an entire section, and there were errors because the editor hadn't gotten to that part that I published. And it was a horrible launch. And it's because I got confused, which is why now I'm just like, nope, then I don't work with you unless you do Google Docs. But there's that. And then finally, when I'm done with the editor, I have to download that, or, a Word doc. So it's back to Word doc again. And then I have to upload it to a formatting software. Now I've jumped from software to software. I actually personally have used Judo in the past. Like, it's one of the ones that people really don't know about. Judo is, it's like 1990 wants their design back. It's a little bit hard, but when you really get into it, you can really do a lot of things. But I don't know. But then there's the other one, the Vellum, which is it's a book formatting software. It's a bit expensive, but it's very intuitive. The creators of Vellum did an amazing job of basically helping people to be able to craft professional books pretty easily. But here's the thing, though. Vellum only works on Mac, doesn't work on PC. Vellum also really limits the amount of customization. And there's a lot of, and also too, they're a bit slow on just coming out with new updates and new features, and they don't have a team. There's just the two. So they're very limited in their capabilities. So all of that to say is that that's kind of a good landscape of the things that I've run into for 13 years of being in this industry, and the different softwares I've had to use. And oh, by the way, even if I do Google Docs, I still have 7 different Word docs on my computer at the end that say final draft, final edit, final. This is the final. Publish this one, stupid. Like, I have all of those on my, and that's the most effective. So I've always dreamt about, I'm just going to quote Lord of the Rings here, but one software to rule it all. One software where an author can come and they never have to leave. You never have to export and import and report and do port and rename and track. Like, you have one thing where you can plot, write, collaborate, and format, and it's all there. Your entire project is in one spot. And so it's been,
but that's not one project though. You're going to have to get KDP Rocket or Publisher Rocket smushed in there too somehow. So that in that whole process, right, you're like doing that research stuff in there as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like ways that, as I'm digging into it, and I don't want to get ahead, but like just the other day, I was talking to an author and they're like, well, we were talking about tables, putting tables in books. And the person was like, well, what I do is I design a table and then I upload it as a picture. But when I do that, then the cost of delivery or the cost of printing increases, because the more pictures you have, the more higher the cost goes. And so it's like, oh, so I stopped doing that. So now I want a table, but the tables, and so we're going back and forth. I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if the software actually, like, as you put the table, it says, oh, guess what? You increased the cost of your book by this much. And it's letting you know, it's like, ooh, so if I put that in there, that's going to cost me like 10 cents, huh? Yeah. Okay. Nope. Be gone with you, like, let's take it out. Like,
right.
Wouldn't it be cool if something, and so it's really cool to play with these things and ask yourself that and start to say to yourself, man, wouldn't it be nice? And then say, oh, hey, programmers, go put that in there. That's cool. That's what I love most about working on this, is that it's like a canvas and you just get to play with it. But I'm getting off topic. My point though is that we worked on the software for over a year, and very soon it's going to be coming out. But the way that we're doing this, we're breaking up into what I call phases. And so we're going to launch in phase 1, and phase 1 is what I call Vellum, but better. And because
nice.
we're, I don't know, I'm not much of a marketer in that respect. It's just clear.
Vellum's over there like, gosh darn it.
And well, so the key is that it will not only work on Mac, but it will also work on Windows. It will work on Chromebook. It will work on everything you can come up with, and Linux, you name it. So we're taking care of that problem. The other thing too is it's going to be much cheaper than Vellum, and it's going to have a lot more features, but it's still going to maintain that simplicity and ease of use. Also, too, we will have components inside of it from launch that allow you to actually write inside of it and want to write inside of it. But once we launch this thing, we're immediately going to be putting in all these new features and capabilities that build out to exactly what I talked about. We're going to be adding plotting capability. We're going to be adding the collaboration where you can work real time with your editors or other writers or ARC readers. You can control who sees your book, and you can kill it, when you don't want people to see your book anymore. And then just from a click of a button, you can move it right into formatting just like that. And so so basically when people ask me, what exactly is Atticus? Well, Atticus will be what you would get if Scrivener, Google Docs, and Vellum got together and had a baby,
And Plotter. It sounds like it.
Well, actually, I tell you the truth, my take on this. So this is when it comes to plotting, right? There's so many different ways that authors want to plot, from note cards to Gantt charts to tables to plotters design. Like, they're all super unique. The fact of the matter is that I will say this: I won't get into the game of trying to develop every possible way that authors like to plot. So what we're going to do is we've come up with our own unique way to plot. But I'm also working directly with the guys at Plotter and saying, because I love what they do. I think it's great. I think Plotter is phenomenal. And you even put me on the record to say it's my favorite on the plotting. And so, but what I want to do though, is I want to make this software work with everything. Because if you are an author and you're like, Dave, cool, I like the thing that you did, it's kind of neat, but I really like Plotter, then I want it to work with Atticus. I don't want this to be standalone things. And so I'm actually already working directly with them to ensure that. I'm making sure we have Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly automatically integrates with it. Like,
nice.
Totally nice. Not this whole weird thing that you got to export and put it. Remember the word export's like this 4-letter word to me.
Yep.
But no, so we're working with all Plot Factory, you name it. And even, this new one that we're just talking to, I think it's called For the Words. I think it is. It's like this gamification of writing, where like for however many words you write in that day, your character, your fantasy character, like it's like a game, and they keep battling dragons or whatever. It's super cool, and I'm like, oh my goodness, if so I want my program to be able to send that information, if you want it to For the Words, so that your character, as you're writing in Atticus, your character's battling dragons. So like I said, I really just want to make the software be something where it tailors to all the different things that authors do, because I can't create something that does it. I hope to create something that will work with what you want to do. And that I think is our biggest goal.
That's awesome. So now you mentioned that it's going to be operating on all the different platforms. Does that mean it's going to be cloud-based then, or is it going to be a downloadable app? How is that going to work?
Both. actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were able to solve this crazy problem where it's kind of the best of both worlds. So our system is something that you download. You can download, or you can work online. So you can either pull it up on a Chrome browser, log in, and access all of your information right there and write. So maybe you're staying at your aunt's house and you don't have your computer, you can still write on her computer. And it will automatically sync up with anything that you've downloaded on any of your other stuff. You can also work offline too. So if you have it on your computer, and you're on a train, you don't have to connect in, you can still write and do your thing. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so where did the name Atticus come from? Oh,
well,
go ahead.
Yeah. And by the way, you can download your files onto your computer, or you can, like I said, our system will also back up. So that way you have it on your computer and you have it somewhere else, and it's there like double safe, in case you spill wine onto your computer, like I've done once. You don't lose everything, right? So Atticus came about because, well, first off, I've got an affinity for Atticus Finch, but I won't say that that's where the name came from. Wink, wink. But the truth of the matter is that actually Atticus is named after Titus Atticus, who was a famous publisher for the Roman Empire. And matter of fact, he saved all of Cicero's work, and he's a big reason why we have a lot of the philosophers' work, because he took it and he mass produced the information. And when I was actually studying the word Atticus, what I found was Atticus is a very popular Roman name, and every Roman that popped up was either a philosopher, a poet, or a writer, or in this case, I guess a publisher. And I was like, wow. And then I also looked, and there's like a famous Atticus now that's a poet, in modern day. And I'm just like, well, if this isn't speaking my language, this is awesome. So instead of creating another software called Book, something like Book Writer or some kind of Scrivener or Scribblings or Quibble, or, I'm like, that's my guy, Atticus. So
I like it.
Yep. and then we gave it a Boston Terrier logo. And the funny part is because I'm trying to convince my wife to let me get one, a Boston Terrier. I'm like, but honey, it'll be a business expense now.
Well, think of all the photo shoots you could take with it just for Atticus.
Right. I need him for the social media account,
right?
The little glasses for the dog and the bow tie and sitting in.
Think about all the TikToks you could do.
Exactly.
Right?
He'll be more popular than me.
Right? You can even name him Atticus.
That's right. Oh, he will. Yeah, his name is Atticus.
Yeah.
It's for sure. It's a foregone conclusion. So.
Heck yes, he's being manifest into reality as we speak.
That's right.
I love it.
Willing him into existence.
We did that. We have two dogs. We knew their names before they even came here, and now they are obnoxious as all heck. So it happens. It happens. Okay, so you mentioned co-authors and mentioned that you can co-create at the same time in this program. So how does that work for an author who is maybe thinking that they want to co-author a book, or like you said, edit with an editor in real time? How does that actually work for them then?
Yeah. So when we come out with the collaboration capability, the way that it's going to work is that there's really going to be 4 levels of collaboration you can do: writing collaboration, editing, ARC, which is advanced review copy, and formatting. Okay. And so there's going to be this collaboration panel where you click on it and you can see those 4 levels, and you click to add somebody to it. So when you say, okay, I want to add an editor, you'll click that button, you put in their email address, and Atticus will send them an invite. Now, if they own Atticus, it'll automatically open up your project to just the thing they can touch inside their Atticus. If they don't, then it will open up in a web browser for them to own, and they'll have to kind of create a free account. Okay. And it will open up just that section of your book that they can touch. So say, for example, they're an editor. Well, they can only do edit mode on your book. So, and what edit mode will look like is exactly what it would look like if the person is using Word and they click edit mode. Okay. So they can highlight, they can, track changes, all of that. And we're designing it to look exactly like Word, because 95% of the editors out there only operate in Word. So we don't want to teach old dogs new tricks. Little dog pun there. And so it's going to look exactly like they open up in Word, except that what's cool for the author is that as the editor works, the author can see it inside of their Atticus. They never have to leave. And so they can comment and communicate back and forth within the Atticus. They can see all those changes. They can accept changes. And when they accept the change, it's imported into their book right then and there. And so that's how the editor works. With regards to ARC, on the other hand, ARC review copies, you can send out 10 versions of your book or whatever, or 10 copies of your book, excuse me, to ARC readers, and they can open it on their phone or on their computer or whatever and read. And because they're an ARC reader, they can only leave a comment. They can't edit, so they can comment. And you can also control if that ARC reader can see what other readers have left as comments as well, or if you don't want them to see what the other people have commented. And so that way you can get a differentiation. And then finally with Formatter, yeah, we have the formatting and it's awesome, but maybe you just don't want to have to do it. What if you could just click and tell this person to format it for you? So now the problem is that for that formatter, they have to own Atticus in order to do that. We can't do an online thing. They have to have it. So if that so the other way we're telling formatters is like, hey, if you want to be able to format for Atticus users, you're going to need to, use format or use Atticus. So there's that. And then same thing with writing collaboration as well, is that the two writers both have to have it. We can't do it with that online version or something like that, because it needs to constantly communicate with the two. Now,
right.
With that said, writing offline is very important, but when you collaborate, we're going to have a couple of stipulations when you collaborate with somebody as a writer. Okay. First off is that we'll have it normally that you cannot write unless you're connected online if you're collaborating with another writer, because what we don't want to do is this writer deletes that paragraph and then writes this in, and then you don't see that because you're not connected and you change that paragraph. Like, how do we deconflict? So both have to be online so they can see it real time, just like you're on a Word document. However, though, say for example, you're like, well, I really need to get on this train and I'm not going to have the internet. You can lock a chapter and then work offline on that chapter, which means the other author can't touch it. Okay. And so this helps to make sure that you can still work on your project even offline if you're collaborating with another writer. So that's how we're getting around that.
That's really awesome. It sounds like there's a lot of different ways that people can then get in there and really operate in real time with it versus having to go onto Google Docs. And I know a lot of authors who do co-write in Google, and I don't know, for me, it's like, it doesn't quite lay out the way my brain works.
Right.
I'll do it if I have to, but I don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. And
so
this would allow the two authors to really communicate and have all the tools like they're used to, like on things like Scrivener or other writing tools, and not have to skip a beat, not have to go somewhere else, write an entire book and then import it in just to be able to do the things you want.
That is really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to it. So that brings us around to when's the time frame that you're thinking about launching this first version of it, and what can authors kind of expect for a pricing point?
Yeah. So we are going to do a private release to those that are on the waiting list here on May 12th, actually.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why we're doing it private is because we want to be able to work with, we had a beta team. They've done a great job in helping us make sure that this really fits, but we want to expand that even more to test our systems, as well as to get even more input on what we should add and do. So we want to have this kind of like tight-knit group of people that we can work with. I would say that probably about 6 weeks after that. And again, like when you talk programming is like really hard to nail down. So I'm going to guess 6 weeks from there. So we're looking at probably the public launch. And that's where we're going to mass open. And, but like I said, once we open that up, my team's still at a full gallop because we're going to be adding so many features real quick.
That's awesome. So is it going to be a one-time payment thing like Publisher Rocket, or is it going to be a monthly thing?
Nope, one-time payment. I've said it from the beginning. I just don't like subscriptions. I also really don't like the idea of building my entire writing on something I have to pay for every month. Like, it's not that, like, I know there are a couple of subscription writing things out there, and I get it. It's from a business perspective, SaaS, they call it, is really awesome. But I don't think I would ever pull the trigger on something where, like I'm going to put my book on the system and the moment I stop paying them, I lose it. Or, that it's going to like, okay, I can export it, but now what do I do? Like, I just don't like that idea. So we're going to go with a one-time model. For Vellum, unlimited books and ebooks is $250. Whereas for us, it's only going to be $147. And so that's it. You get it and all of our future updates for free.
That is fantastic. And you can be on a PC and still do it. So that's
PC, Chromebook, Linux.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is okay. So that's pretty awesome. I think everyone listening to the podcast is definitely going to be excited about that, because I know that's one of the things that I get asked a lot. Like when I'm teaching different courses, that I recommend Vellum, because that's been the one that I use personally at the moment. But I can guarantee you I'll be definitely trying out Atticus. I am on that wait list, so I'm excited to see if there's an email that actually comes in on the 12th. But so I think it's going to be really beneficial, because I know so many different authors who write in their PCs or PC laptops or whatever. And so it's going to be really, really helpful for them.
Right. There are so many authors that are on PCs that are either buying a MacBook so that they can use Vellum, or they're paying for the Mac and cloud thing, and they're trying to do this whole weird rigmarole just to be able to access the program. And so not only are we going to surpass what Vellum does, but everybody can use it without this crazy, OODA loop. And like I said, we're going to be $100 cheaper. So
that's fantastic. Well, I think that's everything I wanted to cover today. Was there anything else in specific you wanted to bring up? Anything that they should know about Atticus, or any of the programs that you're obviously, well, not just programs, all of the companies you're running and juggling?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, for me, Atticus was being developed because for years of just the pain of having to move from point to point. And I think we have a lot of plans with Atticus on how we can really help improve the writing community, and not just from writers, but also from publishers as well. And how to create kind of publisher versions and kind of assist, or how to get you connected with the right editors and, formatters, or help you to build an art team if you don't have one. There's so many things that we can do to improve the overall experience and not just the writing experience. So I really look forward to it. It's a really big passion project of mine. It's been a pain point of mine for 13 years. So as an author, I'm really jazzed.
I can imagine. Well, and you've been able to test it out and try it out. I'm thinking that if you're jazzed about it, that means we're going to be jazzed about it.
Yeah. Well, and I've also hidden some Easter eggs inside the program as well. It just,
really,
so it'll be fun to find out when people find them.
Oh, interesting. Did you hear that, everybody? There are Easter eggs. Go hunting.
That's right. It's like Halliday. Anybody who's read Ready Player One.
Yeah, right? Ooh,
James
I'm very
Halliday.
Nice. Oh gosh, I hope it's not like the hidden thing where you have to go under a tunnel. Okay, we're gonna have to. We'll go back to that. We'll dig into it when we're in it. Well, thank you, Dave, so much for being here today. Where can my audience find you? Obviously, if they're trying to come find you in specific, or if they're trying to find Atticus, what's the best place for them to go?
Sure. You can find me at kindlepreneur.com. I've got a contact page, and if there's any questions about anything we talked about, hit me up there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.